Hey guys and girls, this is Psycho Steve on Hair Today, Gone Tomorrow. I have the legendary, incredible drummer extraordinaire on the phone with me today, Mr. Cyndi Gennaro. So, good day, sir.
Good morning. How are you, Stephen?
I'm very good for my age. Thank you, Cyndi, for joining us.
Awesome.
So,
awesome. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So, everybody knows you from being the drummer of multi bands. So, I just thought we'd just jump right into it and ask you quite a few questions, if you don't mind.
Okay.
For example, were you always a drummer? Did you always want to be a drummer, or?
Yeah. Well, it was kind of a thing where it was just like built into me. I have pictures that my mother gave me when I was 3 years old beneath the Christmas tree, playing with a toy drum that I had gotten for Christmas that I didn't let out of my sight for a number of years, and I was always banging on the kitchen table or the dashboard of the car with music playing on the radio, or a butter knife at the dinner table playing like a swing thing with a swing ride pattern with the butter knife. And,
nice.
And then when I was 14, my mom finally got me a drum set. New Year's Eve in 1965, we went into Manhattan and bought a brand new drum set, and that was the beginning of it.
Right on.
There in 1965, yeah.
Nice. What kind of kit was it?
It was a Rogers kit.
Right on.
The white pearl Rogers kit, and my mother, bless her heart, she saved the receipt, and I'm looking at the receipt. It's framed on my office wall.
That's awesome. How much did it cost, if you don't mind me asking?
It was $383.
Wow, that's a lot of money back then.
Yeah, it was a lot for back then, and it was a bass drum, a rack tom, and a snare drum, and a floor tom.
Right.
And two cymbals, a hi-hat stand, a seat, and then two cymbals and with their stands. It was awesome.
That is awesome. You don't still have it, do you?
I have the snare drum.
That's fantastic. Awesome.
Yeah.
So, speaking of your mother, any family members, musicians besides you?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm the only one.
Gotcha. All right. Besides drums, do you play any other instruments?
Not to speak of. I mean, I know from memory how to play one or two or three songs on the bass.
Cool.
But I really don't know. I don't know how to play another instrument. No, but I was in a band early on, a cover band, like a high school band early on, that we thought it would be very cool to switch instruments. Like when we played a set at a high school or something.
Right.
During the set, we would all switch instruments. I would play bass, the bass player would play drums, the guitar player would play keyboards,
awesome.
Whatever. And so we did that on like two or three songs. I played bass on two or three songs, and so I memorized the part. I was shown what to play, and that's what I played. I didn't know basically what I was playing or music theory or any of that. But I loved playing bass. I really liked it.
Nice. Here's a crazy question. Have you ever been starstruck? Like you were in a room with someone and you're like, oh, wow, look, it's Bob Hope or someone?
I don't really get starstruck.
Right.
But if you were a member of the Beatles, I would be starstruck. I was starstruck meeting Ringo. I was starstruck holding John Lennon's guitar. My sister treated George Harrison when he was suffering from cancer at a hospital in Staten Island.
Wow.
So I have the only Beatle I actually met was Ringo, and but I was starstruck. And when I saw Paul McCartney play live on Saturday Night Live, I was at the studio then. I was starstruck, and I actually was brought to tears when I heard McCartney sing some Beatles songs in person. It was awesome.
That is wow.
But yeah, if it's not for a Beatle or let's say George Martin, if I were to meet him while he was alive, I would be definitely starstruck. But I always tell my students, nobody, to use kind of a vile language, nobody craps Haagen-Dazs. Everybody goes to the bathroom.
Right on.
So And that's the lesson I give to my students how should I act at an audition when, like let's say if I'm auditioning for Lenny Kravitz and he walks in the room, like how should I deal with that? And I just say, listen, just picture him wiping his butt. And then the starstruck goes away.
Okay, so you heard that. I am going to tell that. I'm a single dad of two little monsters, a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I'm going to tell them that Uncle Sandy said this, so that's
and if
awesome.
you want to be specific about it, it's nobody craps Rocky Road Haagen-Dazs.
Right on, okay. Nice, thank you.
Sorry for being so violent.
Oh no!
In the morning.
Oh no! This is awesome. This is great. All right, so you spoke highly about the Beatles, so I guess this answers the question: if you can play with anyone, dead or alive, who and why?
It would be the Beatles, but I would want to play alongside Ringo.
Okay.
I would just love to be in Paul's band today, or if you say dead or alive, to do one song with the Beatles intact would be just a dream come true.
Right on. I don't blame you. I got to see, it's not Beatles, but my first concert, I got to see Beatlemania. My mom took me and my older brother. I was like 4 or 5 years old. Of course, I started crying because we were right upstage and it was really loud and everything. And then like a year and a half, 2 years later, I go see Kiss at the Palladium and I had no problem. In like 19,
Right.
And I tell my kids, if the music's too loud, you're too old. So
that's correct.
And correct. They're like, what? I'm like, exactly.
Right.
So, all right. And you said you got to hold John Lennon's guitar. Was it his electric or an acoustic?
It was his black and white Rickenbacker, the iconic Rickenbacker, where a friend of mine played on the Double Fantasy record. I went to the record plant to visit him while he was recording that record. John and Yoko were not in the studio at the time, but we were listening to some of the rough mixes of that record because a friend, as I said, Earl Slick is a friend of mine. He played guitar on that record. Yeah. And we went into the studio and all the gear, but it was still in the process during that time of still recording some overdubs and stuff like that. So all the gear was set up, and we walked into the studio itself. We were hanging in the control room listening to the tracks, but then Slick and I went into the control room, into the studio itself, and I saw John's Rickenbacker on a stand, and I picked it up and I held it. I didn't play it or anything, but I just held it and I just stared at it hanging over my shoulder for, what seemed like a really long time, and it must have been maybe 15, 20 seconds.
Right.
And when I took the guitar off, Slick said, look at the back of it, and it had the Beatles set list scotch taped to the back of John's guitar. And I remember seeing that guitar, I don't know, it must have been hundreds of pictures of him playing that guitar at Shea Stadium, him playing that guitar on Ed Sullivan. I'm looking at a picture on my office wall of the Beatles, and he has that guitar on. So I didn't meet John. He was supposed to be at that listening session, but him and Yoko had to leave the studio unexpectedly. But yeah, that's as close as I got to meeting John Lennon. And if I had to pick a favorite Beatle, it would have to be John.
Wow, okay. Wow, that's still, I'm sure you felt the energy come off that guitar, too.
Absolutely, man. My mind was just racing of think of all the photos I've seen of that and the videos and all the songs that were written on that guitar, and it was awesome. It was a brush with greatness.
Yeah, I wonder where that guitar is now. It's probably in like a Hard Rock or the Smithsonian or maybe even the Rock and Roll Hall of Shame.
I'm not sure where it is now, but I'm not sure where it is. Maybe Yoko has it. It might be in the Hall of Fame. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's probably worth buku bucks too, I would assume.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. All right. So do you have a favorite song?
Well, it's two songs come to mind. One is Imagine.
Okay.
And one by John, written by John. And one. The other one is In My Life, which was a Beatles track, but it was written by John and sang by John. It was a Beatles song. I think it's either on Rubber Soul or Revolver or whatever. And that's the song that's going to be played on 10 at my funeral.
Wow. Okay.
In my life. It's in my will.
Wow. Okay. How about a favorite song that you've ever recorded, played out, or contributed writing to?
A song that I played on, it became a hit single. It was called Into the Night.
Oh, by Benny Mardones.
Benny Mardones, yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. I played on that song, and it's I get the most compliments on my playing in regards to that song, and it became a hit single in 1980.
Right.
And it became a top 10 single again in 1990.
Right. It's a brilliant song. So,
yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, what a voice that man has. Or had, absolutely. I should say. Okay. All right. Now, we know you're from New York and everything,
right.
And Italian heritage. Is it gravy?
Right.
Is it sauce? Or is it ragu?
It's not ragu. Forget it. Oh. Anything you buy at the market is not gravy, and it is gravy.
Okay.
It's gravy.
Because, like I said, I've asked a lot of friends, other musicians and stuff like that, that are Italian heritage and everything, and some tell me it's gravy, some people tell me it's sauce, and then one told me it was ragu. I'm like, ragu's isn't it in pasta sauce that you can buy at like ShopRite or something? He's like, I used to call it this, and I'm like, okay, whatever, and then, I wasn't sure your take on it, so I'm taking a poll here.
Well, I don't want to know who it was, but any Italian that says ragu is the terminology for what the red gravy is that you put on spaghetti.
Right.
I would question. I would ask to see his birth certificate.
Okay. Do you speak Italian?
No, I don't.
Okay. Any languages fluently besides English, of course.
I know a little bit of French that I learned in high school, and a tiny bit of Spanish that I learned in college, but that's about it. My grandparents were born in Sicily on both sides of my family, and my mother spoke 100% Italian to her mother, and but always taught us English. She never taught us Italian, and I used to communicate with my grandmother with sign language because she didn't really speak that much English. She spoke a little broken English, but a lot of it was sign language. So, a word here, a word there, a slang word here or there or whatever, but I can't carry on a conversation in Italian.
Awesome. That's cool that you know sign, though. I taught my sons when they were, infants and stuff like that because, children at that age can't speak. So I just taught them a couple of hand gestures so they could communicate with me if they were hungry, if they needed help, if they wanted more, stuff like that. So,
right, absolutely.
Right on. All right, so now that you're a Nashville transplant, how long have you been in Nashville?
We moved here in January of 2014.
Cool. Now, so are you getting used to saying y'all, or you're still a New Yorker through and through?
I'll be a New Yorker until the day I die.
Awesome answer. Okay.
But that's not to say that I really love Nashville. I love the lifestyle here. There are many opportunities to play.
Right.
A lot of my friends here. A lot of my friends that are not musicians. A lot of my musician friends have moved here. Long time friends have moved here. So it's a great musical community here, and I really like the lifestyle. I love the place where I live, the actual neighborhood. It's awesome. I really like the weather. Is kind of a less drastic version of New York weather. I mean, we still have seasons, but they're not. We don't get like weeks at a time where it's in the teens in the wintertime and snow stays on the ground for weeks and weeks. We don't have it. I use my snow shovel, I think, once since I've lived here in 4 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's really cool. I like it.
Nice. All right. Yeah. Here's a question since you're a New Yorker. Yankees or Mets?
Oh, for sure, Yankees.
Excellent
100%.
answer. Okay. See, now you've gone up another notch in my belt, so awesome.
Awesome.
I have two favorite teams.
Yankee fan for all my life.
Yeah, me too. You know, that's my girlfriend's only flaw. She's from New Hampshire, so she likes the Red Sox. I tell my kids and everything, and my kids are like, why do you date her? I'm like, hi, you seen what she looked like. You see how she treats you. The only flaw she has is she's a Red Sox fan. They're like, okay. Now that you live in Nashville, what kind of car do you drive?
I drive a Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Cool. Right on. So what's in your...
I've had it for a pretty long time. It's a 2002.
Okay.
But it's only got like 110,000 miles on it, and it's got the seats that fold down and throw a drum set in there.
Nice.
Landscaping stuff, mulch, soil. It just carries everything. It's awesome.
Nice.
I like it.
So what's in the CD player right now? What's
in the CD player?
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything in my CD player right now, but I'm about to burn. I'm doing a gig. I did a gig with B.B. Buell last weekend in New York, so that has been played in my CD player quite often because I had to but I recorded the record.
Right.
But we played some gigs, so I had to refresh my knowledge of the song, so that was the most recent CD that was in my player.
Wow, awesome.
Now what's going in there is a Raylan Nelson CD, which I'm going out tomorrow, doing 3 gigs with her, and she happens to be Willie Nelson's granddaughter.
Awesome. I was just about to ask.
Her material is like a cross between Dolly Parton and the Ramones.
Wow.
It's really rocking. It's like country tinged, but it's loud and brash and wide open.
Nice.
So that's going to be what I'm going to be rehearsing that stuff today. So I'm going to be listening to that CD quite often.
Right on. All right. Speaking of musicians, do you still talk to any of your former bandmates from like Kraft or Blackjack?
Kraft, no, but I think I'm in touch with 1 or 2 of the guys on Facebook.
Okay.
Blackjack, I'm mostly in touch with Bruce Julick,
right?
Because we've done some fantasy camps together, and we're in touch all the time.
Awesome,
me and Bruce.
Awesome, gotcha. So no, in touch with.
Yeah, I mean, I try to stay in touch with as many people as I possibly can. I mean, I really love the fact that, you know, after all these years where you still can be in touch with people that you knew in the 60s and the 70s and stuff, it's awesome.
Absolutely.
I like doing that. I try to maintain contact with all my buds.
Yeah, well, the Blackjack stuff was definitely, you know, incredible because you think about who's in that band besides yourself, and now look where they are. You're like,
right.
Wow. You know?
I think Jimmy Haslip and I are friends on Facebook, and we correspond, but I haven't spoken to him in quite a long time.
Gotcha.
And I think he's still based in Los Angeles. So is Bruce, I think.
Nice. All right.
Right.
You've played with Cyndi Lauper. You've played with Joan Jett. Now, what did you like? As far as were you hired by the label, or because those girls are New Yorkers? Did they say, hey, let's get Sandy, and then they called you, or did their management call you? How's it work? Because you were, you know, besides Kraft and Blackjack, you've been in, like, the Monkees. You were in all these other bands. How does that happen? Do you get the opportunity by just because you're an amazing profession and you get called, or just friends tell them about you and you try out? How's it work?
Well, there's no really one way how one gets a gig. It's like, you know, it's like the first one is the hardest to get, but then, you know, the way to get gigs is to play with people.
Right.
So, yeah, the first one is like a credit card. The first one is like, okay, you want a MasterCard? Okay, what other cards have you had? In other words, you have to prove yourself. So you have to go ahead and just keep playing with different people. And when you play with people, then, you know, you start having your resume and you start meeting different musicians. Even if it's you meet musicians and the first band you're with goes nowhere, you're still playing with other people, and those other people might be connected to a famous band down the line. And so the fact that what I tell my students, how do I get gigs? How do I get great gigs? Just keep playing with as many people as possible. and you create a network of friends and fellow players, and then you start referring each other as time goes on and other players getting involved with other projects. Oh, I remember this drummer I played with 2 years ago, a real nice guy, blah, 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 but he would be perfect for this. And you get a call for that gig. So as far as Cyndi goes, no, the label was never involved. I was hired for Cyndi Lauper by her manager at the time, David Wolf.
Right.
Now, when I was on tour with Cyndi, after I got that gig, Joan and her manager, Kenny Laguna, were in the audience on one of those gigs, and she had, a visual and reference of what I did. And then years later, and then again, during that time, I would go to the China Club in New York and play every Wednesday night with a bunch of other musicians, that played with Billy Squier or whatever. So you get one gig, and then that leads to another gig, and then that leads to another gig, and that leads to another gig. There's no real one formula that you follow to get gigs.
Okay.
The one thing that I would suggest is just to play with as many people as possible. Try to accommodate as many people as possible. If they need a favor for you to play or fill in for somebody, do it, because they will remember that favor years down the line. That's basically what led to my getting the Monkey gig, was that I did a friend a favor by filling. He was the MD of an oldies act, and he asked me to fill in for a drummer that bailed on him, and it was a 3 days notice, and there was not a lot of money. I had to bring my drums. I had to drive 2 hours. But I did the guy a favor, and he was referred by a mutual friend. I didn't even know him personally. And I went and did the gig, and the guy that asked me to do the gig happened to be the MD of this oldies act, and he was the bass player.
Right. And
we got along really, really well. About 3 months later, he called me and he goes, "Listen, I'm the MD now for the Monkees, and I'd like you to come down and do this gig." So there I was, doing a reunion tour with the Monkees, and I ended up doing every single reunion tour, just about every reunion tour, from 1987 until Davey died in 2012.
Oh, wow.
So, me doing a favor for a person led to a gig that had years and years of involvement. Like, I used to go out. It was a long time, and then Davey did it between Monkey tours. Davy Jones did his solo tours,
right?
Solo gigs, with casinos and whatever.
Right.
And I used to do those too. And then eventually Mickey Dolenz did his solo shows in between Monkey tours, and I ended up doing those. So if I didn't, it's just the little things that matter in your life. Don't overlook any opportunity to play.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and play. Now, if it's only playing that one night or having fun that one night, well, that's awesome.
Right.
But that may lead to other stuff. So there's no real downside except getting off your lazy ass and going to play.
Right.
There's no downside to that. You're playing your instrument. You're playing music with other people on a stage or in a rehearsal or whatever. So go and do it. You never know what happens. You never, ever know. You cannot predict the future in this business. You can't.
Very true. I told my cousin, he actually took a lesson from you when he went to the Drummers Collective in New York, and I told him the same thing. I'm like, no gig is a bad gig. No matter what, you're still playing your craft, and you're in front of people. No matter if it's one person or 1,000 or 15,000 people. If you're playing the Garden, you're playing, a barbecue. You're still doing something that brings you pleasure and probably brings other people pleasure. Right.
You never know, and you don't do it for this reason. You do it for the reasons you just said.
Right.
But the byproduct benefit is that you never know who's going to be in that audience.
Absolutely.
You never know who's going to be with you on that stage. You never know who the other players are, or somebody in the audience. Maybe they're related to somebody, and then a week after that gig they hear about, my drummer left. I saw a drummer last week, or I played with a drummer last week. It's awesome. Why don't you give him a call and see whatever. So you never ever know. It's like the more people you play with and the more people you meet, it's like the roots of a tree. It just keeps branching out and branching out. And the longer that you're in this business and doing it, the roots of that tree become quite extensive.
Absolutely.
So you might play with somebody 2 years ago, have played with somebody 2 years ago, and get a call saying, hey, and this happens to me, I'm not going to say often, but it happens to me frequently, where, oh, Sandy, I met you and blah, 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 I saw you play, blah, 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 do you want to do this gig, whatever. So you just go ahead and play with as many people as possible, and don't be lazy about it. And even if you have the belief in yourself that you're going to make it as a drummer or whatever instrument you play, but you have to go out and play. The phone ain't going to ring and say, okay, it's your time to be a rock star. Come, whatever. You've got to go out and spread the word that you're available and what you're about. It's a business like any other business, and if people don't get to try the product, they're not going to buy the product.
Right. And I also tell my cousin, for example, if he ever became, because one of his, I don't know if it was a student of his, like a fellow student, but he also, I know his first name is, I think, Sean. He also plays drums for the Saturday Night Live band. He also played with
Sean Pelton.
Yeah. And he also played with Paul McCartney. And I told him, I was like, my cousin's name is Dan. And I told him, I'm like, ask him to be his drum tech. And he's like, why? He's like, why? I'm like, okay. Drummers get sick. You'll know his drum parts and his drum kit better than probably him because of the way you are with your drum playing. And if, say, he gets sick one night and you're doing his drum tech, guess what? And he's playing with Paul McCartney. How many people can say they got to play drums with Paul McCartney?
Right.
So.
Right, absolutely. But you have to be careful with that. I mean, yes, you're right. And I was in a position, I was with this Pat Travers band.
Right.
The first time I was with Pat was in the early 80s.
Right.
And I had while on tour, while we were on tour, I broke my collarbone in a snowmobile accident.
Ouch.
And I had to come off the tour, and my drum tech actually was a drummer, and he just, so not to interrupt any dates of the tour, he filled in for me.
Wow.
And so, yeah, you're right, that could happen, but the caveat to that situation is that is a very, very, very rare situation where the drum tech gets the gig or gets to play the gig.
Right.
And a more common situation where drummers become drum techs, and because it doesn't happen very often that they replace the drummer that they're teching for, then they're a drum tech on that tour, and then they're asked, oh, you're a great drum tech, you want to be a drum tech on this tour, and then they become, the label around their neck becomes drum tech. Because, you know what I mean? Because it's so rare. If I become a drum tech for whoever, Sean Pelton or, Abe Laboriel, who's Paul McCartney's everyday drummer, chances are I am not going to get to play with Paul McCartney. Chances are that if something happens to Abe, they'll work around it or get somebody referred by Abe,
okay.
Pro guy to fill in, or if he's off maybe something will happen to Abe when they're off the road, which leaves you out of the picture anyway. So the chances of something happening to a drummer are slim,
right,
to disable him from doing a gig, and the chances of something happens to a drummer to disable him while on the road are even slimmer.
Right.
And then the chances of something happening to a drummer while on the road, and another pro being brought in and then you're the drum tech for the replacement guy.
Right. Got it.
So it's not out of the question, and you didn't give your nephew or your cousin bad advice.
Right.
It's just highly, highly unlikely. It's more likely that you'll be labeled as a drum tech that plays drums, not a drummer that's a drum tech.
Got it. All right, makes sense.
Different.
All right. Now, you said you played with Pat Travis, you played with Cyndi, you played with Joan, you played with Bruce Kulick. I heard, I don't know how true this is, you played with Ace Frehley?
not on an official level,
right.
but I got a call in the 90s when Ace lived in Connecticut. I got a call from Anton Fig. Anton Fig is a very close friend of Ace Frehley.
Right.
And Anton used to go up to Ace's house and just play, like just go ahead and play and jam.
Yeah.
And Ace used to record, like the 2-hour jam or whatever, and use it to pick some parts out to write or whatever. So I get this call one day from Anton going, "Hey, Sandy, are you available to go up to Ace's house? He just wants to play and jam for some songwriting ideas, whatever. Just go up and play. He's got a drum set there and up to his house in Connecticut." So I played on that day. It was like a 3-hour kind of play. It was awesome.
Nice.
And the bass player, ironically, the bass player in that band was John Reagan. Now, this is an example of what I was talking about before.
Right.
This was in the 90s, okay? So I go up to Ace's house, no money, as a favor to Anton, basically, to fill in for him.
Right.
But I wanted to do it because I'm going to go play with Ace Frehley. It's awesome.
Right.
And so I meet this guy, John Reagan, and we had, so based on that favor I did for Anton, I not only became, and I'm still friends with Ace today, I never played in his band officially,
okay.
and I never did any gigs with him, but every time we run into each other on the road, we're always great friends and whatever. But John Reagan, the bass player in that band, who went on to play with Frampton and
right.
these people, he called me and he's coming into Nashville to showcase. He's playing with a guy, let me see, I forget his name. He's playing with an artist, and I'm going to be doing a showcase with this artist on John Reagan's recommendation. So there's an example of something, a favor that I did for somebody in the 90s came back, and I'm reaping the benefits of that in 2018.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Right on. All right. So now, what's next for you? Because you're no longer teaching at the Drummer Collective. Do you teach down there or via Skype? What can we promote, and how can people find you?
All right. Well, I teach. Well, people can find me. My website is sandygennaro.com. My email address is sandy@sandygennaro.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. And I also have embarked. Well, there's a great new app. It's called, started by the people at the Drummers Collective. Anthony Citronini, the director of the collective, who I'm still very close friends with.
Right on.
He started this app called Meathook.
Okay.
Now, and it's MEETHOOK. If you Google it, and it's a free app, you sign up, and drummers like me, drummers like Kenny Aronoff, drummers like Daru Jones, drummers like Carmine Appice, drummers like a lot of famous guys are hooked up with Meathook.
Right.
And basically, I'm not going to go through the whole thing,
right.
How it works, but basically, a fan can call me through the app and either do a Skype and discuss the business, or just have a conversation like you and I are having, or take a Skype lesson, or talk about music, talk about drums, talk about what kind of car you drive, whatever you want to do. It's a great way for fans to hook up with famous drummers, and that's going to be expanded to other musicians as well. So just go
awesome.
Investigate Meat, and I'm part of that Meathook.
Right.
MEETHOOK.
Right.
Just Google it and go on, and you have the opportunity to talk to anybody you're a fan of if they're a part of that app.
Nice.
That's one way. And in the last 3 years, I've also started a motivational speaking career. And I speak to corporate, and I speak to universities and high schools and churches about the lessons I've learned in the 53 years of swimming with the sharks in the music business, and how it applies to other businesses, how it applies to goal setting, how it applies to time management, how it applies to employee management, how it applies to work ethic, motivation, visualization, attaining your goals, whatever. So that is my that is my other B career right now, and it's called, my presentation is called Beating the Drums and Beating the Odds
Awesome.
in Music Business and in Life. And I work off an acronym called BEATS, and it stands for Belief, Enthusiasm, Attitude, Tenacity, and Service.
Wow.
And when you use all those attributes in a positive way throughout your life, every day of your life, regarding everybody you meet or everything that you do, marvelous, unbelievable, unforeseen things and opportunities are placed in front of you. Because I try to figure out how can a musician stay in the music business going on 53 years. Again, I got my first drum set on New Year's Eve, 1965. So this New Year's Eve in 2018, it would be 53 years I'm playing the drums for a living.
Awesome.
And how does one do that?
Right.
And so I came up with this acronym called BEATS, and it's those attributes that you have to apply to everybody and everything you do in your life, and magic things will happen.
Awesome.
So that's basically, and I welcome, if anybody out there listening to this wants to email me or Facebook message me or, ask me a question or whatever, you can go through MeetHook, or you don't even have to go through MeetHook. You can just email me.
Right on.
And I will accommodate you with my response.
Wow. So you guys and girls and everything in between heard it here first about MeetHook and how the real deal Mr. Gennaro is about, not just a great drummer, but a great inspiration to me and many other people that are going to hear this show. So I also wanted to say thank you very much for taking the time today. I know you're quite busy, to, chew the fat with me and get to know you a little bit more and see how approachable you are, because look at all the great people you have played with and continue to play with, and you still have your hair, so I'm jealous.
I do have my hair.
Yes.
I do have my hair.
And like I said, everybody, check out Cyndi Gennaro's website, cyndigennaro.com, MeetHook, all those great websites. Thank you so much, and God bless, and good luck in Nashville.
Well, thank you, Steve. I appreciate your time and the opportunity.
Take care, Cyndi. Have a good week.
Okay. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.